Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Real pleasure to be able to be speaking to you today. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible series, Shadow and Bone. Obviously, we're into season 2. What can fans expect?
Wow. It's not your average day at the office is what you're looking at. There's so much action from the word go. Um, so you've got betrayal, you've got love triangles, you've got just your average good versus evil, you know?
And I always think it must be strange when you kind of come into a series that's already, been established. So what was that like for you? Had you already been watching Shadow and Bone? Did you have to go back and watch it? And I guess was there any kind of trepidation to be sort of entering into, the cast and crew, which have already had some time together?
Yeah, there was a lot of trepidation, definitely, especially because you can see like the chemistry on screen already from season one. But also, even as the casting process was happening, it was made clear to me that they were looking for people to join a tight-knit family. Like, we've got a great thing going on. We want people to join who will keep that vibe. So I was like, okay, no pressure. um, and um, I hadn't seen season one until I started the casting process, and then I started watching it as research, thinking, oh, I'll just watch a bit, get the vibe. And then immediately was like a die-hard fan as soon as I binged the whole thing. Then I read all the books, loved the books, read the other sort of other things that Lee Bardugo had written. I was like, oh, now I'm just a rabid fan, a huge, huge fan of the world. Um, so then I started thinking, yeah, now if I don't get the job, I'll be pretty sad.
Yeah.
So it was great when I did because I felt like I was, you don't always get to do a job where your heart is really linked to the work as well. You're like, okay, I'm going into this, see what it is. But I was like, oh, I love it. I get to be a part of this world. Incredible.
And what do you think it is? I mean, it does seem like there's just kind of endless appetite for kind of these fantasy theories. And I don't know whether it's something about the fact that it does kind of transport you kind of out of our everyday reality, which I think everyone needs a little bit of right
Mhm.
now. But there's also that element that you can actually talk about lots of relevant issues and the dynamics and things that can really connect with people. But maybe because you're doing it through a fantasy world, it's not quite so on the nose. So it's kind of got two layers to it.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I really agree. I work in comedy as well and make comedy shows, and we've always thought that the best way to like try and teach someone something or change someone's mind about something is to sneak it in under a laugh. And I feel like that's the same thing with fantasy. If you come with some heavy um moralistic story being like it's really good to accept people for who they are, guys, it's just snorefest. But if you show people characters that they're really invested in a world that they don't have to um, feel like hard drawn lines of what do you call it, of loyalty, and you can see it outside of your own world view. Suddenly you're like, yeah, why are they picking on that girl, or why can't those two people be together, or why shouldn't she be king? And that kind of thing is I think so much more useful than trying to shove it down people's throats in a kind of teaching scenario. So I think, fantasy is how we teach children to do the right thing. And I think we need to learn as much as the kids do. As much as children need to learn, so do the grown-ups.
It's so true. And tell us a little bit about your character specifically, and kind of, she's one of this, a twin, and she's kind of strong, kind of fearless, and knows how to wield an axe. So when you sort of read that character on the page, how did you begin to think about how you might play her? I mean, in what elements maybe could you relate to her, or did you think she was very different? And what was the appeal for you of that?
Um, I actually decided when I was casting, going through the casting process, that I wanted to really lean into the similarities between she and I. Obviously, she has magical powers, but me, I'm still working on those. But I felt like a lot of the elements that I've based her kind of core character on is pulling on things that come quite naturally to me. She's like quite fun. I think she's a bit sort of she's a bit of a dry wit, and she can, but she's extremely loyal and things. But she's also, she likes to be front footed and go for things. And I'm close to my brother. She's very close to her brother. Very protective relationship. So I was like, none of this. I think you can trip yourself up being like, this is an otherworldly character. They're not like me. So I thought I'll just ground it all in my own personality. So that was nice because then I started to think about other things I could pull from her to me. Like she's very bold. So it's like, maybe I should be bold.
And of course, as we were saying there, and the fact that, and you can see some parallels to our reality as well, in the sense that she's mixed race, and you can sort of see that the way she's trapped between two worlds can also be relevant, and to someone of your background or people in
Yeah.
this country, when you do have two kind of identities that are pulling on you, or perhaps not feeling like you're fully accepted by either. I don't know. So, do you think that's also something interesting to explore with this character?
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, I think the series and the books deal with that in essence anyway. It's all about duality, and they're very, Toya and Tamar are very clearly stuck in that space of I don't fit in here, I don't fit in here, so I have to carve out my own identity. And I definitely relate to that on a personal level. And it's so rare to sort of have a character that you get to play that is like genuinely, I've spent a lot of my career playing either full-blooded East Asian characters and feeling worried about that, and or playing characters that are written for white people, quote unquote, neutral characters that in the mind's eye of the creators are white, and then trying to move myself into that space. So yeah, it feels like a real kind of self-fulfilling positive space to be like, these characters validate my existence, and my existence validates the characters. And if there's any, there wasn't many people like me on TV growing up. Very exciting to think that that might be something that a young fan might see and be like, oh, it's possible, or it's telling my story, and make them not feel so betwixt and between, perhaps.
Absolutely. And one of the things that must be so exciting about working on a production like this is just how vast the sets are, all the costumes, but are there any kind of like challenges in all of that? And wearing all of this different garb, and maybe some of the moments of having to do sort of stunts and things like that, was it a lot of fun, or were there challenges along the way?
So much fun. So much fun. You are basically just like, oh, this is what kid Anna would have loved to have done, um, but certainly, like, my costume, i had I had two belts, kind of axes on my back with I had axe on my hip. It was very hard to go for a toilet break, basically. I was like just covered in hardware. And there were a couple of times where you've been sitting around for ages and you get back on set and you're like, okay, I've got to get back into my body. I've got to like shake it off. And I just shake, everything would come off. Things would be flying everywhere, like some kind of game of Buckaroo. So there were things like that. And doing stunts as well. Like, we at one point we're doing a stunt on a ship that's in the middle of a field that moves itself, and and we're all in thermals and like heated thermals because it's -1 with our costume on top, freezing cold, all the hardware, and then we're having to like do this choreography with a man in a green suit. And you're like, wonder how this is gonna look.
Amazing.
But such a fun challenge to have, really. Like, what a great problem to have in terms of what we were getting to do.
Mm.
It was like a
And
kid in a sweet shop.
what about the fellow cast? And like you say, entering into a group of people that already kind of have a shorthand with each other, but a lot of fun. And then in particular, the act of playing your twin, you must have actually become very close in real life as well.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. I was Yeah, because I found out it was him, and then you start looking him up, and you're like, oh, good lord, oh, he's a god. It's an actual god, and he's going to be playing my brother, and he's an amazing martial artist, and he's been in the industry for such a long time. But again, as you were saying, we connected on the fact that we are both mixed race. We were in the industry. He was born in the UK, grew up in LA and things like that. So we had that kind of shorthand of understanding where each other were coming from.
Mm.
And I was just realizing we kind of delved into our backstory together and figured out all the things that we would have gone through together. Poetries, like little quotes, because Tolya's kind of a poet. So before every shoot day, we'd send each other these little snippets of poetry. So we were creating this little brother-sister bond between us. That really, yeah, it really still cherish. Like, we're still very close, and we call each other, little bro, big sis. Yeah, it's pretty special. Not many people get to play twin.
And finally, what do you think that people can take away from watching the series? I mean, we've mentioned some of the kind of the aspects of fantasy and the immersive nature of it, and the themes that can perhaps come out of it. What do you hope people take away?
Oh, what a good question. I think I really hope people take away a kind of a feeling of being part of the gang, of the family. I think that's the really lovely thing about the show that I found from season 1, which was I know these guys are my friends. There's like the camaraderie that everyone's pulling in the right direction, apart from the baddies and maybe Kaz. Sure. But that feeling of like, I know these people, and if I get to sort of join that gang for some of the fans, and they're like, oh yeah, this is part of the world I feel comfortable with and I can escape to, that would be a lovely feeling. Yeah. And if that happens to be something that I can kind of add to the visibility for East Asian and mixed race actors as well, and sort of maybe something for a little Anna in her bedroom watching a TV show, that would be pretty cool.
Mm. And on that note, I guess, how did you feel watching the Oscars the other day and seeing everything everywhere all at once kind of sweep the board? And of course, that award for Michelle. It did sort of feel like, I don't know if I felt sometimes some people in the media were kind of lessening the sort of impact of that, or the significance of that. But absolutely, it does feel like a bit of a watershed moment in terms of representation, and that being kind of recognized at, the biggest platform in terms of cinema in the world.
Yeah, it was. I think the community, the East Asian community, and the Asian community as well, but just it can't be emphasized enough. It is so profound. I think everyone I'm hearing from, all the people I know, it's huge. She won Ki Hai Kwan, the film itself. Everyone involved in it. it was like a validation of our worthiness to be part of the conversation, part of and part, you know, like Michelle Yeoh, she's been working for all these years, and of course you could say, oh, you're part of the conversation, but in reality, you don't feel like you're sitting at the big table with the big kids, particularly with, you know, stereotypes and tropes that we deal with about being quiet and passive, and, you know, never raising our voices or trying to get noticed. It's taken a long time. I mean, yeah, you look at those two actors, how long they've been working, and where they started out, and how the amount of graft that it's taken. I just, yeah, I can't be doing with anyone sort of trying to lessen those things. I think it would be easy to do if you're not part of the community, but like that is, it can't be, it's so important because we didn't have it, and they know that their win is not just for them, it's for everyone in the community. So it's huge. It is really huge, and I was extremely emotional, extremely emotional about it. Yeah.
And just to quickly mention kind of some of your other projects, I think that's where you were last night. You're doing like your a new comedy show, is that right? Is it a sketch show?
Yeah.
And of course, you presented the Critics Film Awards. So you know you've got your fingers in lots of different pies.
Yeah, well, that is part of you know, all our, it's the blessing and the curse of being someone who looks like me, because when I left drama school, it wasn't a clear or easy path into, oh, you know, people were going and doing Importance of Being Earnest, or I'm like, I don't fit in there, I won't get cast there. Where's the work? Is it stereotypical? Is it this? Is it that? So I was like, okay, how do I create my own work? So I went into comedy, and I diversified the hell out of the industry, basically. So I write as well, and all of those things that come out of difficulty then end up, you know, fertilizing in lots of different ways. So yeah, I make comedy with another mixed race woman, an actress called Emily Lloyd Zaney. We've been working together for some years, and it's just great because it's the opposite of doing a massive incredible show like Shadow and Bone, where it's a year since we wrapped, and then but you know, there's so much work that goes on post production, and it's such a huge machine that you're a tiny cog in with loads of artists in all different kind of areas, and then you're just like, it's just me and you, we're writing whatever we fancy, we don't have to worry about what anyone else wants to see or is thinking of us, and just put it out straight directly in front of an audience and be like, do you like it? It's very much a quick kind of feedback loop. So it definitely nourishes that other part for me.
Yeah, definitely. And what's the show called? And you know, how can people see it and stuff?
Well, we as a double act are called Egg, which I can tell you has the least Google juice in the world, but you can find us. Our website is eggcomedy.com, and the show is a work in progress. So this is our first outing, but we'll be in Edinburgh. And yeah, if you follow me on social medias and things like that, then I'll be charting our route to Edinburgh, and then to London and beyond. We'll be touring the show. So yeah, it's exciting times.
And finally, you know, what in terms of your own ambitions, what kind of other work would you love to do in terms of directors you'd love to work with, or actors, or different genres you'd like to try? Yeah, maybe a rom-com, or I don't know, using your comedy, you know, skills, but for a movie or something.
Yeah, I would love to do something where I could really lean into some comedy, some character-driven comedy, particularly, would be really awesome. And I also think it would be quite nice to do something, you know, sort of quiet and emotion-driven. But I'm not against kicking some more ass, you know. if there are asses out there to be kicked, I will do it if that's what falls to me. um, yeah, I'm excited to see. I don't like to pigeonhole myself, so I'm excited to see kind of what comes up next.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and can't wait for everyone else. I think it's out today, in fact, Shadow and Bone. So
Yeah,
we'll be getting stuck into that. And best of luck with all your future projects. Thanks a lot.
thanks, Sarah.
Thanks,
Pleasure
Anna.
chatting.